This was brought to you by Roger Hanson, Gaming with Infamous, on YouTube, Roger Hanson on Patreon, and Franklin County Internet Society on Facebook.
Cloak. Foresters. Woven from several pieces of green and brown canvas, these large ponchos aid anyone trying to hide in a forest environment. The carefully chosen colors blend in with the vegetation, and their ponchos' loose shape obscures the humanoid form. Foresters' cloaks provide a +1 circumstance bonus on hide checks made in a forest. Crossbow sight known. This device comes in 2 parts: an eyepiece that attaches to the stock of the crossbow and a sight that is affixed to the end of the weapon. When calibrated properly, the sights allow the user to focus more carefully on a target. The use treats targets as if they are 2 range increments closer. It has no effect on targets within the first 2 range increments. Listening cone. This device is made for listening through doors and other solid surfaces. It grants a +2 circumstance bonus on listen checks made through a door or other relatively thin solid obstacle. Pack framed. This pack distributes weight better than normal packs, allowing creatures to carry slightly more than they otherwise would. However, it is harder to reach into a framed pack while wearing it. When calculating an encumbrance for a character with a framed pack, treat the pack and everything inside it as weighing 10% less than normal. Retrieving anything from the frame pack is a full round action that provokes an attack of opportunity. Robes. Desert. These light-colored robes offer some protection against the effect of heat and provides a +2 circumstance bonus on fortitude saving throws against exposure to high temperatures. Desert robes offer no protection against either mundane or magical fire. Sheath boot. A boot sheath is easily concealed, making it useful for those who want to appear unarmed. Boot sheaths can hold only small or tiny bladed weapons. Characters attempting to conceal an item in a boot sheath gain a +4 bonus on their pickpocket check, opposed by either spot or search depending on the situation. If the character using the boot sheath does not have ranks in pickpocket, noticing the boot sheath requires a successful spot and search check DC thing. Sheath, wrist. The sheath fits along the inside of the forearm, allowing weapons stored inside it to be drawn quickly. A wrist sheath can hold one tiny weapon, such as a dagger or one wand. Weapons are usually of usual shape, like a bladed gauntlet, do not fit into a wrist sheath regardless of their size. Drawing or replacing the contents of a wrist sheath is a Mo equivalent action. Poison. A surreptitious dose of poison can bring an enemy down without the risk of a prolonged battle. Assassins routinely make use of poisonous concoctions, and even some rogues and bards are willing to accept the risk involved in using such substances. But poisons are not always readily available, even when they are legal. Purchase often brings unwelcome scrutiny. Thus, it behooves those who make frequent use of poisons to brew their own. Refining raw materials into effective poisons require both patience and care. A subcategory of the craft skill poison making provides the necessary expertise. DCs to create usual poisons from the substances described in Chapter 3 of the Dungeon Master's Guide are given in Table 2.7. Poisons below. Making poisons with the craft poison making skill follows the rules of the player's handbook for making items with the craft skill, with the following exceptions. 1. The cost of raw material varies widely depending on whether the character has access to the active ingredient, that is, the venom or plant that actually provides the poison. If a supply is readily available, the raw material costs 1/6 of the market price, not 1/3. Otherwise, the raw material costs at least 3/4 of the market price, assuming that the substance in question is for sale at all. 2. Each week's work is the check result X, the DC to create it in gold pieces, not silver pieces. The rogue making a purple worm poison, for example, would complete 400 gold pieces worth of the substance in a week's time, with a check result of 20, because the DC to create it is also 20. The following table combines 30 new poisons for use in your campaign with those presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide. See Poison in Chapter 3 of the Dungeon Master's Guide for more information on how poisons work. Type. The poison's method of delivery: ingested, inhaled, via an injury or contract, and the DC needed to save. Initial damage: the damage the character takes immediately upon failing his saving throw against this type of poison. Ability score: damage is temporary unless marked with an asterisk, in which case the loss is a permanent drain instead of temporary damage. Paralysis lasts for 2d6 minutes unless otherwise noted. Temporary ability score increases, lasts 1d10 minutes. Second damage: the amount of damage the character takes 1 minute after exposure as a result of the poison, if he fails a second saving throw. Special conditions caused by specific poisons are described below. Loss marked with an asterisk is permanent drain instead of temporary damage. Unconscious lasts for 1d3 hours. Craft DC. The DC for the craft poison making check to create the poison. Price: the cost of one dose, one vial of the poison. It is not possible to use or apply poison in any quantity smaller than one dose. The purchase and possession of poison is always illegal, and even in large cities, it can only be obtained from specialized, less than reputable sources. Trap CR modifier. If you're designing a trap yourself, modify its challenge rating by this amount to account for the poison. Only injury, contact, and inhaled poisons are suitable for traps. New poisons. Some poisons described in Table 2.7 poisons have special effects described below. Aboleth oil transformation takes 1d4 plus 1 minutes. A transformed creature must remain moistened with cool, fresh water or take 1d12 points of damage every 10 minutes. See the Aboleth entry in the Monster Manual for more information about the transformation. Alforna. Fatigue caused by the secondary effect of Alforna is treated normally. Grey Witness. paralysis caused by the secondary effect of gray witness lasts for 1d6 x 10 minutes. Lockjaw. Characters afflicted by lockjaw can't speak or use spells with somatic components. Scorcher fumes. Creatures affected by scorcher fumes lose the scent ability if they had it for 1 die x 10 minutes. Fever fumes. The blindness caused by fever fumes is permanent unless removed by cure blindness or similar magic. Fever paste. The blindness caused by fever paste is permanent unless removed by cure blindness or similar magic. If fever paste is heated, fever fumes are the result. The two poisons are derived from the same base component. Table 2-7. Poisons. Poison California. Type injury DC 11. Initial damage 1 die 2 strength. Secondary damage fatigue. Craft DC 15. Price 7 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +1. Poison Benalar Essence. Type injury DC 11. Initial damage 2 die 4. Constitution. Secondary damage unconscious. Craft DC 15. Price 300 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +2. Poison Black Adder Venom. Type injury DC 12. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage 1 die 6 strength. Craft DC 15. Price 120 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +1. Poison Bloodroot. Type injury DC 12. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage 1 die 4 Constitution +1 die 3 Wisdom. Cost DC 15. Price 100 gold pieces. Type or trap CR modifier +1. Poison Chodrith Toxin. Type injury DC 15. Initial damage paralysis. Secondary damage 2 die 4 Constitution. Cost DC 15. Price 120 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +3. Poison Deathblade. Type injury DC 20. Initial constitution or initial damage 1 die 6 constitution. Secondary damage 2-6 Constitution. Craft DC 25. Price 1,800 gold pieces. Type trap CR modifier plus 3. Poison Fang Dragon Venom. Injury DC 15 or type injury DC 15. Initial damage 1 Constitution with an asterisk. Secondary damage 0. Craft DC 20. Price 300 gold pieces. Type CR or trap CR modifier plus 2. Poison Giant Wasp Poison. Type injury DC 18. Initial damage 1-6 dexterity. Secondary damage 1-6 dexterity. Craft DC 20. Price 210 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 3. Poison Grey Winnis. Type injury DC 20. Initial damage 1-4 Constitution. Secondary damage paralysis. Craft DC 20. Cost 3,000 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier. Trap CR modifier plus 4. Poison Green Blood Oil. Type injury DC 13. Initial damage 1 Constitution. Secondary damage 1-2 Constitution. Craft DC 15. Cost 100 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 1. Poison Halo Root. Type injury DC 13. Initial damage 1-2 wisdom. Secondary damage 1-2 wisdom. Craft DC 15. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 1. Poison Large Scorpion Venom. Type injury DC 18. Initial damage 1-6 strength. Secondary damage 1-6 strength. Craft DC 20. Cost 200 gold pieces. Trap CR Trap CR modifier plus 1. Plus 3. Poison, medium size spider venom. Type injury DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 4 strength. Secondary damage 1 die 6 strength. Craft DC 15. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +2. Poison, purple worm poison. Type injury DC 24. Initial damage 1 die 6 strength. Secondary damage 1 die 6 strength. Craft DC 20. Cost 700 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +4. Poison, Radic Vine Extract. Type injury DC 17. Initial damage 2 die 6 dexterity. Secondary damage 0. Craft DC 25. Cost 1,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +5. Poison, real leaf. Type injury DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 2. Charisma. Secondary damage 1 die 4 charisma. Craft DC 15. Cost 120 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +3. Poison, shadow essence. Type injury DC 17. Initial damage 1 strength with an asterisk. Secondary damage is 2 die 6 strength. Craft DC 20. Cost 250 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +1. No, +3. Poison, Shreef oil. Type injury DC 12. Initial damage 1 die 2 strength +1 die 2 dexterity. Secondary damage 1 die 2 strength. Craft DC 15. Cost 100 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +1. Poison, small centipede poison. Type injury DC 11. Initial damage 1 die 2 dexterity. Secondary damage 1 die 2 dexterity. Craft DC 15. Cost 90 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +1. Poison. Vipid leaf extract. Type injury DC 16. Initial damage dazed, euphoric. Secondary damage 2d6. Initiation or initiative. Craft DC 20. Cost 250 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier. +5. Poison. Wavering leaf extract. Poison DC or type injury DC 17. Initial damage 2d6 Constitution. Secondary damage 2d6 Constitution. Craft DC 25. Cost 3,000 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +5. Poison. Aboleth oil. Type contact DC 19. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage transform. Cost DC 30. Craft DC 30. Cost 2,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +3. Poison animus. Type contact DC 16. Initial damage 1d4 strength. Secondary damage 2d4 strength. Craft DC 20. Cost 750 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +5. Poison black lotus extract. Type contact DC 20. Initial damage 3d6 Constitution. Secondary damage 3d6 Constitution. Craft DC 35. Cost 4,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +8. And that's for black lotus extract. Poison carrion crawler brain juice. Type contact DC 13. Initial damage paralysis. Secondary damage 0. Craft DC 15. Cost 200 gold pieces. Trap CR modifiers +100. Poison crippling vine. Type contact DC 13. initial damage, 1 die 4 strength, plus 1 die 4 constitution, or secondary damage 0. Craft DC 15, cost 180 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 3. Poison, Dragon Bile, type contact, DC 26, initial damage 3 dice 6 strength, secondary damage 0. Craft DC 30, cost 1,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 3. Wait, plus 6. Poison, pour weed extract. Type contact, DC 20, initial damage 1 wisdom, secondary damage 2 die 4 wisdom. Craft DC 25, cost 600 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 6. That's for horror weed extract. No. That's for Dragon Bile. Oh, that's... That's for horror weed extract, yeah. Malice root paste. Type contact, DC 16, initial damage 1 dexterity, secondary damage is 2 dice 6 dexterity. Craft DC 20, cost 500 gold pieces. Trapped CR modifier plus 3. Mesmer, poison mesmer paste. Type contact, DC 15. Initial damage dazzled. Secondary damage 1 die 4 intelligence. Craft DC 20, cost 300 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 4. Knit Harrot, poison Knit Harrot. Type contact, DC 13, initial damage 0, secondary damage 3 dice 6 constitution. Craft DC 20, cost 650 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 4. Netherite, poison. Type contact, DC 13. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage 3 dice 6 constitution. Craft DC 20, cost 650 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 4. Poison Sassoon leaf residue. Type contact DC 16. Initial damage 2 die 12 hit points. Secondary damage 1 die 6 constitution. Craft DC 20. Cost 300 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 3. Poison sleeping weed. Type contact DC 13. Initial damage slowed. Secondary damage 1 die 4 dexterity. Cost DC 15. Cost 500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 2. Poison Terranav root. Type contact DC 16. Initial damage 1 die 6 dexterity. Secondary damage 2 die 6 dexterity. Craft DC 25. Cost 750 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 5. Poison Bever Paste. Type contact DC 12. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage blindness. Cost DC 25. No, crap DC 25. Cost 1,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 2. Poison Wraith Sheen. Type contact DC 16. Initial damage 1 die 2 constitution. Secondary damage 1 die 2 constitution. Craft DC 15. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 3. Poison Adlevin extract. Type ingested DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 4 wisdom. Secondary damage 2 die 6 wisdom. Craft DC 20. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier slash. Poison arsenic. Type ingested DC 13. Initial damage 1 constitution. Secondary damage 1 die 8 constitution. Craft DC 20. Poison Aldevin extract. Type ingested DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 4 wisdom. Gain +2 constitution bonus. Secondary damage is 2 die 6 wisdom. Craft DC 20. Cost 150 gold pieces. And trap CR modifier /. Okay, now we go to arsenic and poison arsenic. Type ingested DC 13. Initial damage 1 constitution. Secondary damage 1 die 8 constitution. Craft DC 15, cost 120 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Poison curtail leaf residue. Type ingested DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 4 constitution. Gain +2 dex bonus. Secondary damage is 1 die 6 constitution. Craft DC is 20. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Column powder. No, poison column powder. Type ingested DC 12. Initial damage 1 dexterity. Secondary damage 1 die 4 dexterity. Craft DC 15, cost 100 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Poison dark reaver powder. Type ingested DC 18. Initial damage 2 die 6 constitution. Secondary damage 1 die 6 constitution plus 1 die 6 strength. Craft DC 25. Cost 300 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Poison barrel. Type ingested DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 6 dexterity. Gain +2 strength bonus. Secondary damage 1 die 6 constitution. Craft DC 20. Cost 150 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Poison ID moss, dead moss. Type ingested DC 14. Initial damage 1 die 4 intelligence. Secondary damage 2 die 6 intelligence. Craft DC 15, cost 125 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Lich dust. Type poison lich dust. Type ingested DC 17. Initial damage 2 die 6. Strength. Secondary damage 1 die 6 strength. Craft DC 20. Cost 250 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier /. Poison lockjaw. Type ingested DC 11. Initial damage can't speak. Secondary damage is 2 die 6 constitution. Craft DC 15 cost 250 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier / Poison Oil of Taggart. Type ingested. DC 15. Initial damage 0. Secondary damage unconscious. Craft DC 15. Cost 90 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier / Poison Wretch. Type ingested. DC 15. Initial damage nausea. Secondary damage 1 die 4 constitution. Craft DC 15. Cost 120 gold pieces. Trapped CR modifier / Poison Strike Toadstool. Type ingested. DC 11. Initial damage 1 wisdom. Secondary damage 2 die 6 wisdom plus 1 die 4 intelligence. Craft DC 15. Cost 180 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier / Poison Asabi Mist. Type inhaled. DC 12. Initial damage 1 die 4 constitution. Secondary damage 1 die 4 constitution. Craft DC 20. Cost 1000 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +3. Poison Brain Dust. Type inhaled. DC 12. Initial damage confused. Secondary damage 1 die 6 wisdom. Craft DC 20. Cost 1,300 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +2. Poison Burnt Ether Fumes. Type inhaled. DC 18. Initial damage 1 constitution with an asterisk. Secondary damage 3 die 6 constitution. Craft DC 25. Costs 2,100 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier +6. Hold up. Cost 2,100 gold pieces. And then okay. Then trap CR modifiers +6. Poison Insanity Mist. Type inhaled. DC 15. Initial damage 1 die 6 wisdom. Secondary damage 1 die 6 wisdom. Cost DC 20 or craft DC 20. Cost 1,500 gold pieces. Trap CR modifier plus 4. Poison, realist, smoke, type, inhaled, DC 15, initial damage, 1 die 6 charisma, secondary damage, 1 die 6 charisma, craft, DC 25, cost 2,000 gold pieces, trap, CR modifier plus 6. Poison, Rashan, vapor, type, inhaled, DC 15, initial damage, 1 die 4, intelligence, secondary damage, 1 die 6, dexterity, plus 1 dexterity with an asterisk, craft, DC 25, cost 3,100 gold pieces, trap, CR modifier plus 4. Poison, Scorcher fumes, type, inhaled, DC 18, initial damage, lose scent, secondary damage, 1 die 4 wisdom, craft, DC 20, cost 800 gold pieces, trap, CR modifier plus 4. Poison, fever fumes, type, inhaled, DC 18, initial damage 0, secondary damage blindness, craft, DC 35, cost 3,000 gold pieces, trap, CR modifier plus 4. Poison, Ungled dust, type, inhaled, DC 15, initial damage, 1 charisma, secondary damage, 1 die 6 charisma plus 1 charisma with an asterisk, craft, DC 20, cost 1,000 gold pieces, trap, CR modifier plus 3. Trade goods. On a peaceful day, the adventurers spot a distant merchant caravan on the road ahead of them. They see just another piece of setting, a detail that adds realism to the campaign world, but one that doesn't impact the heroes or their mission. Another time, the adventurers spot a caravan on the same road, this time engaged in a running battle with a pair of manticores. When the combatants crash through the caravan, the DM needs to know what's in the wagon, what it's worth, and what kind of guards are protecting the trade goods. The value of a merchant caravan or a shop's inventory becomes even more important should the PCs actually come to possess it. Valuable goods must have powerful guards, and if the party comes into conflict over the contents of the caravan or shop, the value of the goods acquired should correspond to the difficulty of the encounter. The simple principle might be the only detail needed in most campaigns. Merchants exist, but their activities remain undefined. It's assumed that the general populace of the campaign world goes about its business and keeps peace at the level described in the Player Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide. Some campaigns, however, benefit from a more detailed approach to economic systems. Designing a constant campaign requires at least a nod of economics, even if that nod includes nothing but a decision to follow the pricing structure of the core books with no variation. The economics section in Chapter 6 of the Dungeon Master Guide provides some basic precepts to keep in mind when designing a world, but DMs seeking to answer more detailed questions must create specific pricing structures for their campaign settings. Fleshing out a campaign's economic system need not be a complex or even time-consuming task. There are 3 possible approaches to designing an economic system. Leave it totally undefined. Define the different portions of the economy only as the characters interact with them, or define everything in detail in advance. Leaving economic conditions undefined within a campaign world allows the DM to change conditions rapidly should the campaign warrant it, but it sacrifices the verisimilitude of a more defined pricing structure. By far the most common approach is defined only the portions of the economic situation that the PCs are likely to encounter. This requires some work from the Dungeon Master, but not the heavy upfront load of defining the entire economic system. Detailing the entire system of economic conditions within the campaign world provides the greatest sense of consistency, but it also requires the most effort. Detailing a complex economy is beyond the scope of most campaigns, but simulating one is not. By applying and recording a small set of economic conditions, the DM can easily keep track of the large economic forces, trade patterns from areas of oversupply to areas of higher demand emerge with just a little preparation. For each region, simply set and track a price modifier for each type of good. Price adjustments and their meanings are as follows. Commodity demand. Oversupply. Availability always. Cost adjustment negative 20%. Commodity demand. Surplus. Availability always. Cost adjustment negative 10%. Commodity demand normal. Availability normal. Cost adjustment plus 0% to negative 10%. Commodity demand undersupplied. Availability almost always. Cost adjustment plus 10%. Commodity demand sought. Availability almost always. Cost adjustment plus 20%. Commodity demand popular. Availability sometimes. Cost adjustment plus 30% to 40%. Commodity demand needed. Availability sometimes. Cost adjustment plus 50%. Commodity demand desperate. Availability black market. Cost adjustment plus 100%. Oversupplied. Oversupplied. The area produces this commodity year-round or very cheaply and likely exports it to other areas. Surplus. The area produces this commodity seasonally or is nearly a major source of production. Merchants often buy the commodity here and transport it to higher demand areas. Normal. Prices are as given in this book and in the player handbook. The commodity is likely produced and consumed in the area. Undersupplied. The area produces the commodity but cannot meet its own needs. Merchants transport the commodity from nearby areas to sell here. Sought. The commodity is either not produced locally or an unusual need exists. Merchants rush to bring the commodity to the area. Popular. The commodity is currently needed or very fashionable. Merchants with large supplies of the commodity become very rich. Needed. The commodity is in great demand, and even the rich might not have enough. Large cities experience this condition most often when short of food due to environmental hazards. Merchants travel great distances to bring the commodity to the area. Desperate. Food in times of famine, medicine in times of plague, weapons in times of war. There is great need and no supply. Those who access to even small quantities of the commodity name their own price, provided they can protect their supply from those trying to steal or capture it. This condition arises most often when a government seizes all of one type of commodity. In order for this condition to arise, typical merchants must be able to bring the commodity to the area. Traffic in the commodity is the province of smugglers or individuals with powerful magical aid. Since some commodities fall under the normal category, the DM need only note areas of great surplus and great demand. The trade patterns and economic conditions that emerge from these simple labels make a great backdrop to the campaign, especially when the adventurer's actions begin to affect the conditions of large areas. Goods versus commodities. The key difference between goods and commodities is their selling price. A commodity in this sense is a valuable good that can be easily exchanged almost as if it were cash itself. Wheat, flour, cloth, and precious metals are commodities, and merchants often trade in them directly without using currency. See Table 7.3, Trade Goods, in Chapter 7 of the Player Handbook. Obviously, merchants can sell these goods for slightly more than they pay for them, but the difference is small enough that you don't have to worry about it. Merchant wealth levels. Apart from a campaign's overall economic conditions, the resources of individual merchants occasionally become important to the adventure. While the vast majority of the player characters' interactions with merchants need not take much time or attention, there will be times when more detail about a merchant's resources are important. In addition to their individual resources, merchants must work with the goods they have on hand. Table 2A, Communities. Community size. Thorpe. Population 20 through 80. GP limit 40. Merchant wealth 100. Traveling wealth 100. EL 1. Traveling encounter war 1 times 2. Community size. Hamlet. Population 81 to 400. GP 100. Merchant wealth 200. Traveling wealth 200. EL 1. Traveling encounter war 1 times 2. Community size. Village. Population 401 to 900. GP limit 200. Merchant wealth 400. Traveling wealth 400. EL 1. Traveling encounter war 1 times 2. Community size. Small town. 900. Population 901 to 2000. GP limit 800. Merchant wealth 1600. Traveling wealth 1000. EL 4. Traveling encounter FTR 1 or 1 times 3. Community size. Large town. Population 2001 to 5,000. GP limit 3,000. Merchant wealth 6,000. Traveling wealth 3,000. ELA 8. Traveling encounter FTR 6 times 2. War 4 times 7. War 2 times 12. No. FTR 4. War 2. War 1 times 9. Community size. Small city. 5,000. Population 5,001 to 12,000. GP limit 15,000. Merchant wealth 30,000. Traveling wealth 10,000. EL 12. Traveling encounter FTR 8. FTR 6 times 2. ADP 6 times 2. War 4 times 10. War 2 times 12. Community size. Metropolis. Population 25,000 plus. GP limit 1,000. Merchant wealth 2,000. Traveling wealth 50,000. EL 18. Traveling encounter FTR 8. FTR 6 times 4. ADP 6 times 4. War 4 times 14. War 2 times 24. In the Dungeons and Dragons game, this means that their purchases and goods for sale are limited by the size of the community in which they operate. Simply put, the value of the traveling merchant's caravan on a stationary merchant's inventory. Caravan or a stationary merchant's inventory cannot exceed twice the GP limit of the community. Gold piece limits, as defined by the Dungeon Master's Guide, represent the maximum value of any one item for sale in the community. Since these gauge the relative wealth of a community, not its total resources, doubling the GP limit makes an easy and simple measure of an individual merchant's resources. Some merchants have the most valuable items in the community for sale, but such goods represent a significant portion of that merchant's resources. Likewise, the value of goods that a merchant can sell in any one community cannot be greater than that community's GP limit. Gold piece limits based on community size can be found in Table 440, Random Town Generation, in Chapter 4 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. When designing the contents of a caravan or merchant's shop, the Dungeon Master must also consider the wealth limits placed on NPCs according to their level. Table 2 through 44. NPC's gear value in Chapter 2 of the Dungeon Master's Guide gives NPC gear value by level. Table 2A. Communities below is an easy reference comparing a community's population to the value of the merchant's goods and encounter level of treasure represented by the merchant's goods and the standard array of guards that protect the goods. Traveling merchants must, for the most part, arrange to protect their own goods, but stationary businesses and merchants traveling in well-defended areas will have little protection of their own. In these situations, the DM must ensure that the local peacekeepers are a defensive force equal to the EL of standard dungeon encounters. Merchant wealth. The maximum net worth of a merchant's inventory in a community. This represents the contents of one shop. For traveling merchants, this represents the total value of transported trade goods and holdings in the home community. Trade goods and holdings in the home community. Traveling merchants use the value of their community of origin. Traveling wealth. Maximum value of trade goods transported by one merchant out of a specific community. Few merchants transport the maximum value of goods. EL. The encounter level commensurate with the value of the transported goods. Traveling encounter. A typical contingent of guards in an uncivilized area. This is often reduced in safe areas. Table 2.9. Commodities. Commodity. Alchemical material. Unusual. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 1 silver piece to 1 gold piece. Commodity. Alchemical material. Rare. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 2 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity. Alchemical material. Exotic. Unit size 1 ounce. Cost 11 gold pieces to 25 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Arcane material. Rare. Unit size 3 pounds. Unit cost 1 gold piece to 5 gold pieces. Commodity. Arcane material. Exotic. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 6 gold pieces to 25 gold pieces. Commodity. Arcane material. Unique. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 25 gold pieces to 100 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Cosmetics. Common. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 1 copper piece to 1 silver piece. Commodity. Cosmetics. Unusual. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 2 silver pieces to 1 gold piece. Commodity. Cosmetics rare. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 2 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity. Cosmetics exotic. Unit size 1 ounce. Unit cost 11 gold pieces to 25 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Dried goods, common. Unit size 1 pound. Unit cost 1 silver piece to 5 silver pieces. Commodity. Dried goods, unusual. Unit size 1 pound. Unit cost 6 silver pieces to 15 silver pieces. Commodity. Dry goods, rare. Unit size 1 pound. Unit cost 15 silver pieces to 25 plus silver pieces. Commodity. Fabric, common. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 1 silver piece to 1 gold piece. Commodity. Fabric, fine. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 2 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity. Fabric, unusual. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 100 gold pieces to 25 gold pieces. Commodity. Fabric, exotic. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 26 gold pieces to 50 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Furniture, plain. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 1 gold piece to 5 gold pieces. Commodity. Furniture, fine. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 2 gold pieces to 15 gold pieces. Commodity. Furniture, exotic. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 15 gold pieces to 25 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Furs and hides, common. Unit size 20 pounds. Units cost 1 gold piece to 5 gold pieces. Commodity. Furs and hides, unusual. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 6 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity. Furs and hides, rare. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 11 gold pieces to 20 gold pieces. Commodity. Furs and hides, exotic. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 21 gold pieces to 50 gold pieces. Commodity. Furs and hides, monstrous. Unit size 20 pounds. Unit cost 51 gold pieces to 200 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Lumber, local. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 1 gold piece to 10 gold pieces. Commodity. Lumber, unusual. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 11 gold pieces to 25 gold pieces. Commodity. Lumber, exotic. Unit size 50 pounds. Unit cost 26 gold pieces to 50 plus gold pieces. Commodity. Paints and dyes, common. Unit size 1 pound. Unit cost 1 silver piece to 1 gold piece. Commodities, paints and dyes, unusual. Commodity size, unit size, 1 pound, unit cost. Two gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodities, paints and dyes, rare. Unit size, 1 pound. Unit cost, 11 gold pieces to 25 gold pieces. Commodities, commodity paints and dyes, exotic. Unit size, 1 pound. Unit price, 26 gold pieces to 50 plus gold pieces. Commodity perfume, common. Unit size, 1 ounce. Unit cost, 1 silver piece to 1 gold piece. Commodity perfume, unusual. Unit size, 1 ounce. Unit cost, 2 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity perfume, rare. Unit size, 1 ounce. Unit cost, 11 gold pieces to 25 gold pieces. Commodity perfume, exotic. Unit size, 1 ounce. Unit cost, 26 gold pieces to 50 plus gold pieces. Commodity rugs and tapestries, common. Unit size, 5 to 15 pounds. Unit cost, 1 gold piece to 5 gold pieces. Commodity rugs and tapestries, unusual. Unit size, 5 to 15 pounds. Unit cost, 6 gold pieces to 10 gold pieces. Commodity rugs and tapestry, rare. Unit size, 5 to 15 pounds. Unit price, 11 gold pieces to 50 gold pieces. Commodity rugs and tapestry, exotic. Unit size, 5 to 15 pounds. Unit cost, 51 gold pieces to 200 plus gold pieces.
Gaming with Infamous. We are into online and tabletop role-playing games, multiplayer online battle arena games, strategy, simulation games too. Check out some of our stuff on Facebook, Franklin County Internet Society. We also have videos on YouTube as well. Roger Hanson, Gaming with Infamous. Support us on Patreon. Check our podcast out too on any of these available platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, Spotify. If you're enjoying the stream, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. We would love to hear feedback.